A few years ago, I had a client sitting across from me at a coffee shop in Arlington. He was in consulting, lived in Northern Virginia for over a decade. And he looked at me and he said something I've honestly never forgotten. Brian, I complain about the I-66 tolls literally every day, but if I moved somewhere slower pace, I think I'd lose my mind waiting 3 days for a contractor to call me back. I'm addicted to the competence here. And honestly, that was the moment something clicked for me about Northern Virginia, because Northern Virginia usually does not win people over dramatically. This is usually not a tropical beach town, a mountain escape, or some instantly charming movie set place where people say, we visited once and immediately fell in love. Northern Virginia works differently. It slowly integrates itself into your life through systems, through convenience, through efficiency, through tiny quality of life details that don't individually seem that important, but collectively become incredibly hard to give up. And after 30 years living here and 20 plus years helping people move all over Arlington, Alexandria, McLean, Falls Church, Fairfax, Vienna, Springfield, the broader Northern Virginia area, and yes, into DC, I've become convinced that many people stay here for reasons they don't even fully understand themselves. People move here saying, this is temporary. We're only staying here a few years. Eventually, we'll move somewhere quieter. Eventually, we'll get more space. Eventually, we'll slow down. Then suddenly, they've been here for 17 years. They know every back road around Route 50. They've developed emotionally charged opinions about metro access. They schedule their lives around avoiding beltway traffic. And somehow, they become spiritually attached to Wegmans and Trader Joe's. And if you've lived in Northern Virginia for a while, you're laughing because you know exactly what I mean. This video is not top 10 reasons to move to Northern Virginia or another generic relocation video. This is deeper. This is about the tiny quality of life differences that quietly make people stay in Northern Virginia forever. And honestly, some of these are going to feel uncomfortably accurate if you've lived here long enough. And stay until the end, because the final reason, the big one, is the emotional core underneath all of this. It's the thing most Northern Virginia residents feel, but almost nobody articulates clearly. If we haven't yet met, I'm Brian Block with RE/MAX Allegiance. I've spent more than 2 decades helping people relocate throughout Northern Virginia. And honestly, some of the most important conversations I have with clients have very little to do with the house itself. The bigger question is, how will your daily life feel here? That's the real decision. So if you're moving into Northern Virginia and trying to figure out where you fit best, which areas match your personality, or what the lifestyle differences really feel like, feel free to reach out anytime. So let's start with the biggest hidden addiction in Northern Virginia: life efficiency. Yes, traffic here can absolutely be horrible. We all know this. I-66 can test your faith in humanity. The Beltway has broken stronger people than us. But weirdly, both things are true in Northern Virginia. Traffic is terrible and daily life is incredibly efficient. I know that sounds contradictory, but it's actually not. Here's what I mean. In many parts of close-in Northern Virginia, your life becomes geographically compressed in a very powerful way. And this is where Northern Virginia gets really interesting. Once people adapt to this lifestyle, it becomes very difficult psychologically to go backward. You could wake up on a Saturday or Sunday morning and within a relatively tiny radius, grab coffee, hit Trader Joe's, stop at Whole Foods, pick up your dry cleaning, go to Orange Theory, walk the dog, meet friends for brunch, go to the hardware store, stop at the pharmacy, hit a park, maybe even squeeze in a haircut, and still be home by early afternoon. That level of density and convenience changes people. And I don't think longtime Northern Virginia residents fully appreciate how unusual this actually is nationally. Because in many parts of America, everything becomes an operation. You don't run errands. You prepare for a logistical campaign. 25 minutes there, 30 minutes back, huge parking lots, massive distances between destinations, no shortcuts, no density. Northern Virginia, especially inside the Beltway, quietly reduces friction from life. And honestly, friction is one of the most underrated concepts in happiness. Tiny inconveniences drain enormous amounts of emotional energy over time. People think quality of life is giant houses, dramatic scenery, luxury amenities. Sometimes it is, but often quality of life is fewer hassles, shorter transitions, easier systems, less wasted time, more functionality. And this is where I want to visually show something on screen, because I really don't think people grasp how extreme this is here. Just imagine a radius map centered around somewhere like Clarendon or Vienna. Inside one small circle, you suddenly have multiple grocery stores, urgent care, parks, trails, metro, gyms, restaurants, dog parks, pharmacies, schools, coffee shops, medical offices, fitness studios, libraries. It creates what I call the 12-minute bubble. And once your life starts operating inside of that bubble, it becomes emotionally addictive. You stop thinking, wow, this is convenient, and you start thinking, this is normal, until you move somewhere else and realize, oh wow, this is not normal. And honestly, grocery stores in Northern Virginia almost become personality traits. I'm not even joking. People move here thinking, okay, it's a grocery store. Then 6 months later, they're passionately debating Wegmans, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, like they're discussing political philosophy. I cannot fully explain this phenomenon, but it's real. And here's the deeper point. Tiny convenience becomes emotional relief, especially for business professionals, dual income couples, people whose lives already contain enough mental load. And this is the part outsiders usually do not understand. As people get older, they value reduced friction more and more. Are you more of a 12-minute bubble person or outer suburb, peace and quiet person? But the next reason people stay in Northern Virginia forever is more psychological and honestly, a little controversial. Northern Virginia has a very specific energy, and once you notice it, you can't unsee it. The people here are sharp, not always relaxed, not always warm, sometimes overly intense, but sharp. You're surrounded by diplomats, military officers, cybersecurity experts, physicians, lawyers, economists, policy analysts, engineers, executives, entrepreneurs. Even casual dinner conversations here can suddenly become discussions about the Supreme Court decisions, AI, foreign policy, education systems, economics, international affairs, technology. And honestly, a lot of people quietly enjoy that, even while simultaneously complaining about the stress levels. Northern Virginia has one of the strongest intellectual professionalism cultures in America. Now, obviously, there's a downside. Let's not romanticize this too much. This area can absolutely become hyper-credentialed, status-conscious, achievement-obsessed, and resume-driven. That pressure is real. But there's another side, too. Many people genuinely like being around ambitious people, informed people, capable people, intellectually curious people. And they often don't realize how much they value that environment until they leave the Northern Virginia, DC area. I've had relocation clients move to slower paced areas and later tell me, I miss the energy. Because in Northern Virginia, being informed is socially normal. That matters more than people realize, especially for intellectually curious people. Northern Virginia has infrastructure for that kind of life, because once people adapt to that environment, moving somewhere less engaged can sometimes feel surprisingly isolating. And by the way, this is exactly why choosing the right Northern Virginia neighborhood matters so much, because Arlington energy feels very different from Vienna energy. McLean feels different from Del Rey. So if you need help figuring out which lifestyle fit makes the most sense for you, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Okay, this next one sounds small, but longtime Northern Virginia residents become completely spoiled by this. Airport access. People here do not fully appreciate how elite the travel infrastructure is. You've got Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, Washington Dulles International Airport, plus access to Baltimore Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport, BWI. That combination is incredibly strong nationally. But honestly, it's not just the airports, it's the integration. That's the luxury. The fact that you can be in a meeting in Tyson's at 2 p.m., hop on the metro, and realistically be sitting at your gate not that long afterward. That level of mobility is rare in America. And once professionals adapt to that level of connectivity, it becomes psychologically embedded. You feel connected to opportunity, movement, travel, national culture, global culture. Northern Virginia residents often maintain broader national and international relationships than average Americans. And easy travel changes identity. You feel less geographically trapped. I've literally had clients reject relocation cities because the airport situation is terrible, which sounds ridiculous until you've lived here in Northern Virginia for 15 years. Longtime Northern Virginia residents know exactly what I mean here. But the next reason that people stay in Northern Virginia forever has almost nothing to do with careers or efficiency. It's emotional. And honestly, I underestimated this one myself for years. Northern Virginia quietly has one of the best balanced 4-season climates in America. Not perfect, balanced. And balance matters more than perfection. You get a real spring, beautiful fall, warm summers, and mildish winters. And psychologically, seasons create emotional rhythm. This sounds small until you actually lose it. You get cherry blossoms, patio season, pool season, crisp fall weather, leaves changing, holiday atmosphere. Life has chapters here, and those chapters emotionally reset people. Many former Northeasterners say, Northern Virginia gives me seasons without punishing me. That's exactly right. You're not trapped in Buffalo-level snow for months, but you're also not living in endless humidity or endless heat. And after people move to perpetual sunshine climates, many quietly begin missing emotional contrast. Because eventually, Christmas at 84 degrees feels a little bit strange, October feels fake, and seasons can blur together. Northern Virginia still gives people seasonal texture. And emotionally, that matters more than people expect. Now, this next one, I honestly think, is one of Northern Virginia's greatest strengths, and a huge reason that people in their late 20s, 30s, family years, and empty nest years end up staying much longer than they planned. Northern Virginia gives many people urban light living, meaning you get access to urban energy without fully absorbing the pain of dense urban life. And this balance is incredibly hard to replicate nationally. Places like Clarendon, Ballston, Old Town Alexandria, Delray, Shirlington, Mosaic District, parts of Falls Church, Reston Town Center allow people to build these semi-walkable lives where coffee is nearby, restaurants are nearby, parks are around the corner, gyms are nearby, metro may be nearby, but you still have parking, trees, quieter streets, townhomes, more space, and manageable density. That combination is gold. And honestly, a lot of America is trying to recreate this exact lifestyle right now. You're sitting outside, hearing birds, but you're also hearing the espresso machine from the cafe around the corner. That's the sweet spot. People increasingly want walkability, connection, energy, neighborhood life, without sacrificing privacy, quiet, greenery, parking, and livability. Northern Virginia accidentally became very good at this exact combination. And this is where Northern Virginia becomes uniquely sustainable for adult life. Because many people want energy without chaos. That's the key. When you're 24, intensity feels exciting. When you're 42, with work stress and maybe children, manageable starts sounding luxurious. And this is where Northern Virginia quietly excels. I remember traveling with my wife Deborah over the years to many different cities that were beautiful, charming, slower paced, and lower cost. And almost every place had something wonderful about it. But after a few days, we'd often find ourselves saying something interesting. Yeah, but daily life there might actually be harder. And that's the distinction people miss. Vacation appeal and life functionality are completely different categories. A place can be incredible for 5 days and exhausting for 5 years. Northern Virginia, for many people, quietly works very well for long-term adulthood. Now, the next reason is subtle, but once you notice it, you cannot unsee it. It has to do with something people almost never discuss directly: social stability. Northern Virginia has what I would call structured intensity. People here are very busy, no question. This is not hammock energy. But what makes Northern Virginia sustainable for many people is that there are also built-in escape valves. That's important. You could spend the day in meetings, in traffic, in demanding professional environments, operating at high speed. And then suddenly, at 6:30 p.m., you're walking through a peaceful Arlington neighborhood, sitting outside in Old Town Alexandria, at the condo pool, on the Mount Vernon Trail, walking the dog, or sitting at a quiet neighborhood wine bar. That transition matters psychologically. You're able to touch intensity without drowning inside it full time. And this is where Northern Virginia gets really interesting. Comparatively speaking, Northern Virginia has a strong functional society feeling. Neighborhoods remain relatively stable, infrastructure generally works, services function, systems function, and after living in environments with more instability, many people deeply appreciate that. I've had relocation clients from other parts of the country quietly say things to me like, life here in Northern Virginia feels organized. There's another thing too. People here tend to maintain momentum later into life. You see a lot of active retirees, second careers, volunteering, continuing education, community engagement, and intellectually curious older adults. The culture here often rewards staying engaged. And for ambitious or intellectually curious people, that environment can feel energizing rather than draining. Everything we've talked about so far, the efficiency, the competence, the walkability, the airport access, the seasonal rhythm, the stability, all leads into one deeper emotional truth about Northern Virginia. And I think this is the thing many residents feel, but almost never say out loud clearly. This is the deepest reason many people stay in Northern Virginia forever. Northern Virginia gives people access to world-class systems without forcing them to fully immerse themselves in those systems 24/7. And that balance is incredibly rare. You have access to Washington, D.C., politics, world-class museums, culture, embassies, international communities, major careers, airports, healthcare, education, economic opportunity. You're adjacent to power, adjacent to influence, adjacent to opportunity. But you don't necessarily have to live in full urban intensity every single moment. That distinction matters enormously. Most places force a harsher trade-off. You either get exciting but exhausting, or peaceful but disconnected. Northern Virginia often occupies the middle lane, and truthfully, that middle lane works exceptionally well for adult life. Over time, the tiny advantages stop feeling tiny. They just become identity. And leaving Northern Virginia starts to feel surprisingly emotional, even for people who complain about Northern Virginia every single day. Northern Virginia is not universally lovable. Some people genuinely hate it here. And honestly, that's fair. The traffic is real, the cost is real, the pressures are real. The ambition culture can absolutely become exhausting. Some people leave and feel immediate relief. Totally understandable. But for many others, the tiny quality of life details become emotionally embedded over the years. And slowly, Northern Virginia stops feeling like a place you move to and starts feeling like the system your life runs on. That's why so many people who came here temporarily are still here 20 years later. If you're considering moving to Northern Virginia and trying to figure out which areas fit your personality, what kind of lifestyle would make you happiest, or what these neighborhoods really feel like beyond the listing photos online, feel free to reach out directly. Those lifestyle fit conversations are honestly some of the most important parts of relocation. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like the video, and drop a comment. I generally want to hear this. What are the tiny quality of life things that would make you stay in Northern Virginia? Or if you're here, what has made you stay? Because I guarantee there are at least 20 more that we could have added to this list.